A pineapple on an English table is never only fruit. It is a sentence about the family that owns the table, said out loud in front of everybody the family means to impress. In a county where the good names have no ready money, the fruit comes by hire, at a guinea for one evening, and goes back to the nurseryman before midnight with its crown whole. Lady Frampton hires hers 3 times a year. She hires the plate as well, and keeps a poor cousin in a cottage to carry and count for nothing, because a relation costs less than a footman, and can be blamed in front of guests. The Duke of Ashburton rides into that county to sell his dead father's glass. What nobody at that table knows is where the fruit standing on it grows, or what it will cost the girl behind the chairs to say so out loud. The sun came through the tall sash windows at March House and lay in white bars across the cloth. 24 covers, and every article on the table hired but the salt. Verity Ledbury had counted the plate into the house herself at 8 that morning, out of a straw-packed crate, and she would count it back out again before dark. She was 22. Her gown was her mother's, dyed a dusty pink and taken in twice at the seams, and the white elbow gloves were Honoria's, lent at the door with instructions. "You will keep them clean," Lady Frampton said. "They come back to me at 4, and they come back as they went out. And you will stand behind the chairs, not at them. You are here to be useful, not to be seen being useful. I understand you. I doubt that very much. But you are obedient, which serves." The fruit came up from the town at noon in a box lined with wool. Lady Frampton had the silver epergne set at the middle of the table, and the pineapple placed on it, and then moved it 3 inches toward the head of the board, where the Duke would sit. "There," she said. "Honoria, come and look." "Does it not make the room?" Miss Honoria Frampton came and looked. She was 19, pale yellow muslin, a fan she used chiefly for punctuation. "It is enormous, Mamma, and nobody may eat it." "Nobody eats them, child. One does not eat a pineapple. One has one." Mrs. Bewley, who had come early because she always came early, put on her spectacles at it. "I have not seen its like since Lady Anstruther's wedding breakfast. Where does one get such a thing?" "One grows it," Lady Frampton said. "You never do. We have the stove house, Mrs. Bewley. My poor Sir Rowland put it up the year we married. I thought your stove house held nothing but geraniums and a dead vine. Then you thought wrongly, and kindly do not think it at the table." Verity stood at the sideboard with the spoon count in her head, 31 out, 31 back, less 2 teaspoons already gone into somebody's reticule at the Easter party, and she looked at the crown of the fruit and did not say anything at all. She knew that crown. She had cut the rusted leaf off it herself in June, with her father's knife, in the pinery behind her cottage, 1.5 miles down the Alton Road. The Duke came at 2, in a plain travelling carriage with mud on it, and his man of business inside beside him, which the county considered a poor showing, and Lady Frampton called modesty. He was 34, dark hair, no whiskers, navy tailcoat, white cravat, high collar, and ink on the middle finger of his right hand where a man gets it, who adds his own columns. He shook hands with the rector before his hostess, and was forgiven for it, because the rector's wife saw it done. "Your Grace is very welcome to March House. You are kind to have me. I am told I am to admire the table. You are to admire nothing you do not wish to. Then I shall admire it honestly, which is more use to you." He stopped behind his own chair and looked down the length of the cloth, and the light went along it, and there was the fruit at his elbow with the sun in its crown. "That is a handsome thing. Where does it come from? Our own stove house, said Lady Frampton. Truly, I have a stove house at Ashburton, and it has not raised so much as a strawberry in 6 years. My father built the pinery, and it has raised nothing since he died but a very fine crop of broken glass. Then your grace must send your gardener to us for instruction. I have no gardener. I have a valuation and a man with a cart, and on Monday se'nnight the whole of it comes down. The table made the noise a table makes when it does not know whether it has heard a joke. You will pull down a pinery? Mrs. Bewley said. Whatever for? Because my father spent £900 in it in 5 years, the Duke said pleasantly, and in the same 5 years the roofs of 4 of his farms let in rain on 4 families, and I have looked at both accounts, and I know which of them I would rather be remembered for. Nobody had an answer to that, so Lady Frampton gave the signal, and the company went in to table, and the pineapple sat between them all like an ornamental lie. At 3:30, when the ices had been sent for and the room had got as warm as a room can get, with all the windows up, a footman came to the door and would not come further in, and stood there with his chin down until Lady Frampton had to go to him. What is it? Miss Pym's man, my lady, at the yard door. He will not go. He says he must have it back by 5, that it is promised at Colonel Anstruther's tonight, and that he is to have it whole. Have what back? The fruit, my lady, the footman said, into the quiet that had come down the table like weather. Lady Frampton came back to her chair with her colour high, and sat down in it as though nothing had happened at all. The man has come for his box, she said. They send the box up, and want it back the same day, and then they charge you for the wool. He said the fruit, mamma, Honoria said. He said the box. He said whole, my lady, the footman said from the door, being an honest young man who had not yet learned what that costs. Let him come in, the Duke said. Your Grace, he is a nurseryman's man, in a leather apron. So is every man who has ever grown me anything I liked. Let him come in, or let somebody at this table tell me plainly what I am looking at, because I have been looking at it for an hour, and it is the only honest thing in this room. There is a particular silence that falls on 24 people who have all decided at once not to be the one who speaks. My cousin had the ordering of the table, Lady Frampton said. Verity did not move. If there has been an arrangement with a tradesman that this house knew nothing of, Lady Frampton said louder, then this house will hear of it now, in front of everybody, and I shall know where to put the blame. Ma'am, come here. She came, from the sideboard past the chairs, in the dyed pink gown and the borrowed gloves, and the sun out of the tall windows came with her along the cloth. 22 faces turned. Honoria's fan came half down. Now, said Lady Frampton, tell this company what you have done. May I take it up? Verity said. You may answer me. I would rather answer you with it in my hands, ma'am. It will be quicker. She did not wait to be given leave, which she would remember afterwards as the moment her life turned over. She put both gloved hands round the body of the fruit and lifted it off the silver epergne, and the Duke, who was nearest, put out his bare hand and steadied the stand so that it should not go over, and their 2 hands were an inch apart on either side of it, and neither of them moved back. Out from under the lowest ring of leaves, freed of the weight, swung a small brass tag on a green silk cord. Mrs. Bewley put her spectacles up. Somebody at the far end of the table half rose. Honoria's smile went out of her face by degrees, like a lamp being turned down. That is a higher tag, Mrs. Bewley said. It is, said Verity. Whose? Mr. Pym's, of the High Street. He numbers them. This is the 11th he has hired out this summer, and it goes to Colonel Anstruther at 9 tonight, and to Mrs. Vaughan on Saturday, and he will have a guinea an evening for it until it softens. And how does a young woman standing behind chairs come to know a nurseryman's book? Said Lady Frampton. Because I grew it. The room did not gasp. English rooms do not. It simply stopped, altogether, and the clock on the chimney-piece went on very loudly by itself. You are not well, Lady Frampton said. Go up. I grew it, ma'am. I cut it on the 9th of July, a little after 6 in the morning in my father's pinery on the Alton Road, and carried it into the town in a basket under a cloth, and Mr. Pym paid me half a guinea at his back door, and entered it in his book without my name, which was my asking, and not his. She turned the fruit a quarter round and held it toward the light. There, that leaf came off in June because it had rust in it, and my father's knife has a nick in the blade that leaves a scar shaped like that. And if you smell it at the base, you will find it 3 days from being passed, which is why it should never have stood in a hot room under a window at all. Nobody smelled it. Nobody had to. 41, Verity said. That is the number since my father died. 41 crowns at half a guinea to me, and a guinea to him, which is £21 10 and 6 in 3 years, and I have not spent a shilling of it. It is in a tin on my shelf. I live on the £8 a year my father's charity allows a curate's daughter, and every penny of that comes to you as rent, and my stove burns faggots I cut myself. I have been the stove house at March House since the spring, after my father was buried. Every fruit that has stood on this table came off my bench. You are in trade, Lady Frampton said. I am, a gentleman's daughter, at a back door with a basket. At 6 o'clock, ma'am, so that nobody should see me and be obliged to know it. That was my share of the bargain. I have kept it for 3 years, and it has cost me every hour I had, and it has cost this county nothing at all except a guinea for each evening of it, and you have all been very glad of me. Get out of my house. In a moment. Verity turned to the head of the table, still holding it, and looked at a duke for the first time in her life, the way one looks at a man. One is about to ask for something. Your Grace, said Monday Sennight. I did. You said your father's pinery comes down, and the glass is valued, and you have a man with a cart. £140 for the glass and the lead. Mr. Crewe has the order in his pocket. Then I will make you a better offer than a glazier will, and make it here, where they can all hear it, because after this afternoon I have nothing left to be careful of. She set the fruit down on the cloth. Give me the pinery, the house, the glass in it, the quarter-acre and the right-of-way from the lane. Not lent, and not out of kindness. On a paper with my name in it, at £10 a year, which is £2 more than I pay her ladyship for a cottage with 1 chimney. You would pay me rent, the Duke said slowly, for a ruin I am paying a man to knock down. I would pay you rent for the only building in England I know how to use. He looked at her for what the rector's wife afterwards insisted was a full half-minute. Madam, he said, you have asked me for the one thing in this county I came here to destroy. The party did not end. It dissolved, which is worse and takes longer. The Duke went at 6 without giving an answer. He stopped in the hall with his hat under his arm and asked, of nobody in particular, where the pinery on the Alton Road was, and a footman told him. and Mr. Crewe said something quiet, with the word improper in it. And the carriage went. Lady Frampton found Verity in the housekeeper's passage, counting the plate back into its straw. 31, Verity said. 2 teaspoons short since Easter, which were short before I came. I have written it on the paper in the crate. You will give me the gloves. She gave them, one and then the other, over the crate, and her bare hands were red at the knuckles from 3 years of hot work, and everybody at that table had seen them. You imagine you have been brave. No, ma'am. You have been vulgar, and there is no coming back from vulgar. Do you know what I must do now? I shall have to be very sorry for you. I must tell every house in this county that my poor cousin has been driven by grief to a shop counter, and they will be sorry for you too, and being sorry for a woman is how you bury her. They will still eat the fruit. They will eat it out of a box and never ask, which is what they have done all along, and what they would have gone on doing if you had held your tongue. Lady Frampton put the gloves into her own reticule. You had a name, and 1 gown, and a cottage at £8. You have thrown away the first, and I want the third back at Michaelmas. That is quarter day. That is my right. It is your right, and I shall observe it to the hour. You may have your notice properly and publicly, at the rent table, before the parish, like anybody else. Then I shall come properly and publicly, ma'am, and pay you to the hour. With what? With money I earned. You will find it is the same colour. She walked home by the road, 1.5 miles, because there was no reason left to go quietly. 3 carriages passed her. The first slowed. The second did not. The third was Mrs. Bewley's, and Mrs. Bewley looked out with her mouth in a firm line and then, at the last moment, lifted 2 fingers off the sill in a small salute, which was the only kindness Verity had that day. The cottage had a slate roof, 1 chimney, and behind it on the south side, out of the wind, her father's pinery. He had built it with £312, the last of her mother's money, and the county had thought him mad, and he had not cared, having been a curate for 30 years, and a naturalist by every hour that was his own. 40 feet of brick and lead and glass, a stove at the north end, and a pit inside filled arm deep with tanner's bark, and the bark rotted, and the rot made heat, and the heat came up through the pots, and that was the whole of the mystery. Verity went in and stood in the smell of it, which is a smell like warm bread and pepper and wet earth all at once, and put her palm flat on the tan. Then she took the thermometer out of the pit, and read it and swore once, in a manner that would have surprised the rector. 81, she said aloud. You want 85, and you know it. She fetched the fork, and turned 3 barrows of bark by lamplight, in a gown she no longer had any reason to keep clean, and she filled the stove, and she sat down on the brick edge with her father's almanac open on her knee, the fat brown book with a strap round it, in which he had written the temperature of that pit twice a day for 11 years, and she had written it twice a day for 3. 9th of July. Cut 1, crown sound. Half a guinea. Pim, there were 6 more coming on. She counted them along the bench with the lamp. 6 grey-green crowns like sleeping animals, and the 7th at the end, the one her father had started from a sucker in his last autumn, and she had never dared sell. The biggest thing either of them had ever grown. He would have got you to £250 and given you away to a bishop, she told it. If you've made it this far into the story, and you want to know what a woman with £21 and a glass house asks a duke for in front of a whole parish, Take a moment to like this video, subscribe, and turn the bell on. Somebody knocked at the cottage door at 9 at night, which in that parish had one of 4 meanings. None of them good. It was a boy from the town with a note, and the note was not from the Duke. It was in a clerk's hand, and it said that Mr. Crewe of Ashburton Court begged to inform Miss Ledbury that the glass, lead, and iron of the pinery at Ashburton had been sold under a signed contract on the 4th of July to a glazing house in Basingstoke for £140, that the cart would come on Monday, and that his Grace, having heard her offer, wished her to know at once that it was no longer his to accept. Out in the black lane behind the boy, a horse came to a stop. The Duke of Ashburton had ridden the 7 miles from his own gate in the dark, behind his own clerk's letter, and he stood in the lane holding his horse and looking at the lamp burning in a glass house at 10 at night. "You have read it," he said. "I have. I sent it because I would not have you hear it in the town on Saturday. Then I found I could not sit still after sending it, which is a thing I have not done since I was a boy. So here I am, in a lane, and I am aware of how it looks. It looks like a man who has come to be forgiven. Yes, he did not flinch from it. Will you let me in? Not to the cottage. There." She held the door of the pinery open with her shoulder, and the heat came out at him in the dark like the breath of an animal, and he stopped on the step with his hat off. Good God! 81 degrees at this hour, Your Grace, and it should be 85, and it will be by 2 in the morning, because I turned the bark this evening, and it is coming up. Come in and shut it, please, or you will cost me a degree." He came in and shut it, and took off his gloves because no man could stand there in gloves, and the sweat came out along his hairline within a minute, and he stood in his shirt sleeves under 40 feet of glass with the lamp between them, and looked down the bench at 6 sleeping crowns. "Explain it to me," he said. Not politely. I have had 6 years of gardeners being polite about my father's stovehouse, and I do not know one true thing yet. Bark from the tanner's yard, oak spent out of the pits where they steep the hides, and finished as far as the tanner cares. Piled wet and deep it heats of itself as it rots, and holds it 4 months, and gives a moist bottom heat no stove in England gives. The stove is only for the nights. The bark is the engine, and it must be turned every 10 days or it packs and cools. You turned 3 barrows of it tonight. After that afternoon I would have turned 30. He laughed, and the laugh sounded surprised at itself. "What did my fathers want?" he said. "I have never seen your fathers." "Then guess, and I will tell you if you are wrong. I have the accounts by heart. It is the only reading I have done for 2 years. Very well. Bottom heat. 99 in 100 fail there. A gentleman builds his pinery. His gardener is told the coals cost too much, so he warms the air and starves the bark, and the pots stand in cold ground and give nothing for 2 years. Then a fruit is wanted for a party, and the gardener is blamed and turned off, and the new one is told to save coal." The Duke was quiet for a moment. "He turned off Warrener in the spring after Waterloo," he said. 19 years in the place. He told my father the bark must be renewed twice a year and the tanner paid. And my father said he had spent enough already, and Warrener said in that case his Grace had built a very expensive shed. He was gone inside the week, and after that nobody ever told my father anything again. So he spent, and it gave him nothing, and he spent more, and I sat in a room in Portugal, reading the accounts of a man buying fruit he could not grow, while a family at Broadmere caught rain in a bucket on their own stairs. I came home to break that glass with a hammer in front of witnesses, and instead a woman in a dyed gown asked you for it in front of witnesses. Instead that, he said. She turned the lamp up because her hands wanted something to do. Your father was not a fool, Your Grace. He was careless with money, which is a different sin, and he was right about the heat, and he built 40 feet longer and 8 feet higher than my father could afford, facing the right way, with a proper back wall. If your bark pit is sound under the rot, that house could carry 4 times what this one carries. 24 crowns a year. 30 in a good one. He asked what a crown was worth, and she gave him the 3 prices without pausing. A guinea an evening to Mr. Pym for the hire of it, £200 and better for a great one at a London fruiterer's, half a guinea to her at a back door before the town was awake. He took the risk, and the cellar, and the cart, and my name off his book, she said. I do not complain of Mr. Pym. He is the only man in this county who ever paid me anything at all. He looked at her hands then, bare and red across the knuckles with 2 white burned scars where a stove door had been shut on them, and lifted his own and stopped it an inch above hers on the warm brick. May I? There is nothing to see. There is plenty to see. That is why I am asking. She turned her palm over, and he did not touch it, and they stood so, with the lamp hissing and the wet bark ticking as it cooled, for as long as it takes a man to memorize something. Then he put his hand back at his side. The cart comes at what hour? Carts come at 7. Then I shall be in Basingstoke at 6, buying back my own roof from a man who did nothing wrong. If he will not sell it, I have no honest way to keep it from him, and you should know that tonight rather than on Tuesday. And if he will, I shall have a ruin, and the glass money gone twice over, and a tenant who offers me £10 the year for it, and a county that will say I have run mad in exactly my father's fashion. They will say that. Miss Ledbury, he said, I find I do not care in the least. The glazing house in Basingstoke opened its yard at 6:30 on Monday, to find a duke sitting on the mounting block outside it. Mr. Rudge named his terms the 140 back, and 25 for the loss of his men's day, and was paid in notes on the spot, and said, writing the receipt, that his Grace was the first gentleman he had ever sold a roof to twice. By 11 the 3 of them were standing inside the wreck at Ashburton Court, the Duke, Mr. Crewe, carrying his case, and Verity Ledbury in the dyed pink gown, because it was the only one she had. 120 feet of glass house under one roof line, north wall of brick 2 courses thick, flues running the length of it, and in the middle a tan pit like a grave dug for something enormous. 40 panes out, ivy in at the west end, every pot on the benches held a black rag of a thing that had died standing up. Well, said Mr. Crewe, there it is, the glass money, and a great deal of rubbish. Verity went along the pit with her sleeves pushed back, dug her arm into the bark to the elbow, and brought it out. It has never been emptied, she said, not once. Under a foot of your father's tan there is a foot of the tan before it, packed to the hardness of a road, and it has not made a degree of heat in 6 years. Can it be dug? 9 days, with 2 men and a horse. Then 3 loads of fresh bark, and it will be at 90 within a fortnight, and I shall have to fight to keep it down." She put her hand flat on the north flue and walked it slowly. "Cracked here. And here. That is smoke into the house whenever the wind is in the east, which is what killed the last of them, whatever the gardener was told to say. 4 days for a bricklayer. And the plants?" the Duke said. "Nothing in this building is alive, Your Grace, and I would not want anything that had lived through it. I have 31 suckers on my own bench out of my father's stock, and they are the best in the south of England, and I say so as a woman who has been paid half a guinea by a man who knew it." Mr. Crewe cleared his throat in the manner of a man who has been waiting to. "May I speak plainly, Your Grace? You have never once asked me that before doing it. Then I shall not spoil my record. This ground cannot be let to this lady. Give me your reason and give it in front of her. The reason is the practice of the estate, and I mean no discourtesy by it. An unmarried woman may hold land. There is no bar. I do not say there is a bar. I say that in the 90 years of this estate's books, there is no instance of a lease of estate ground to a woman in her own name, and that the trustees will ask me why at the very moment when Your Grace's affairs most require the good opinion of your neighbours." "That is a very complete objection," the Duke said. "You have left out the part where it is my ground. I have not left it out. I have assumed it. It is why I am obliged to be tedious. Miss Ledbury, do you wish to answer him?" "No, Your Grace," Verity said. "Mr. Crewe is right in every particular, and I would think less of him if he had said anything else. But he has left something out as well. Say it." "He has not asked what the ground is worth. It has stood empty 6 years and earned nothing at all. I am offering £10 a year and 2 years down before a spade goes into that pit, so that when the trustees ask you why, Mr. Crewe, you may show them a figure instead of a woman." Mr. Crewe looked at her for a moment over the top of his case. 2 years down, he said. In advance. £20. You have £20. I have £21 10 shillings and 6 pence, said Verity. And I know to the 6 pence how I came by it, which is more than most of the gentlemen you draw papers for could tell you. In 11 years of service, nobody had heard Mr. Crewe laugh. He laughed then, a short dry noise like a hinge. "Draw it," the Duke said. £10 by the year, lease for her life, the house, the glass, the quarter-acre, and the right-of-way from the lane. Bring it to me, at my Michaelmas, at the rent table, with everything else. Michaelmas is 9 weeks. Then it will be 9 weeks well spent, and the trustees may have all of it to chew on. There were hoofbeats outside, and a girl's voice sending a groom away, and Miss Honoria Frampton came in at the broken west end of the house, in a riding habit with the skirt over her arm, and went white when she saw who was in it, and came on anyway. Your Grace. Miss Ledbury. She swallowed. Mamma would rather I did not, but it seemed to me you should hear it from somebody who is not enjoying it. Hear what? Said the Duke. The notice went to the Morning Post on Saturday, Honoria said. You and I are to be married at Michaelmas. It is in print, Your Grace. It is in print already, and everyone has read it, and Mamma has been in 4 drawing rooms since Friday telling them all what Miss Ledbury is. The Duke wrote to the Morning Post on the Tuesday, in 9 lines, contradicting the notice and signing it himself. It was printed on the Friday in small type at the end of a column, where corrections live, and by then the county had had a week with the other story, and a week is enough. Lady Frampton neither wrote to Mr. Pym nor spoke to him. She sent her housekeeper into the shop to buy nothing, twice, and let it be seen. And on the Saturday the Anstruthers' order went to a nurseryman in Winchester, and on the Monday the Vaughans did, and inside a fortnight a man of 68 had lost a third of the custom he had spent 40 years getting. He said none of this to Verity. She had it from his errand boy, who could not keep anything, and she walked into the high street the same afternoon in the pink gown that was now known in 3 parishes. "You will not come here again," Mr. Pym said, before she had the door shut. "Not to the front, not to the back, and not at first light either." "Mr. Pym, I am not finished. I will not have your fruit either, and if you send it by a boy, I shall send it back by the same boy." He put his fists on the counter. "There, now I shall tell you what I mean by it, because I am too old to be misunderstood twice in one life. If you come to my door, they will say I have you in wages, and that is the end of you. It is a shop, Miss Ledbury. A shop can lose a Saturday. A woman cannot lose her name twice. And your custom will come back. Mrs. Vaughan quarrels with somebody every October, and I shall be forgiven in the general confusion." He turned the ledger round on the counter and pushed it at her. "But you will take this, your account, every crown, every date, every payment, in my hand, for 3 years, 41 entries, and no name against them, because that was our bargain and I kept it, and I am ashamed of it now, and that is my own affair. A person who says she grew a thing had better be able to show a book that says so." "Mr. Pym, if you knew what I have to say to you, then do not say it in a shop," said Mr. Pym. She was 9 days digging the pit at Ashburton with 2 of the Duke's men and a horse, and she was seen there every one of the 9, by carters, by the curate, and by a groom of Lady Frampton's who had no business on that road at all. Lady Frampton came to the cottage herself on the last evening in August, in the carriage, with her woman waiting at the gate. "You may sit," Verity said. "The chair by the window is the sound one. I shall stand. I have 4 minutes. I have come to make you an offer, and I shall make it once. Ma'am, £50, and a place with my sister in Bath, a widow with a bad hip and a good house in Laura Place, who wants a companion that can read aloud and keep accounts, at £20 a year, and the cast gowns, which in your case would be an improvement. You would go on Thursday. Nobody in Bath has ever heard of you. And what am I to do for it? Sign a paper that my man will bring in the morning. It says you were mistaken, that you assisted a nurseryman out of charity and confusion after your father's death, that you never had money for it." She paused. "And you will not write to him?" £50, Verity said. "It is a great deal of money to a woman with 1 gown." It is 7 years of what a nurseryman pays me, near enough, and I have counted it 3 times since you began speaking, which tells you what sort of woman you are dealing with." She stood up. "No, ma'am. Think before you are proud at me. I am not proud. I am exact. You are offering me £50 to put in writing that the best thing I have ever done was a confusion, so that it can be read out after I am dead. My father put £312 and 11 years into that pit. I have put 3 more, 41 crowns, and 9 of them stood on your own table and were admired. You will have nothing. I shall have the account of it in Mr. Pym's hand, a lease at Michaelmas. 31 plants out of my father's stock, and a chair by the window that is sound. Verity opened the door for her. Keep your £50, ma'am, and buy your fruit, and I hope you get an honest one. Lady Frampton stopped in the doorway with the last of the light on her. Michaelmas, she said, is also quarter day. I know what day it is. You hold my cottage. You will come to my rent table with your 40 shillings in your hand like every other tenant on this estate, with the parish looking on, and I shall have my notice ready, and it shall be read out where they can all hear it. You have made a great deal too much noise in front of people this summer, cousin. Let us see how you do it when it is your own roof going. In the first week of September the story turned itself round, as stories do when a woman has been sufficiently punished, and the county wants a fresh subject. It stopped being about a poor relation with a basket, and became about him, the mad duke's madder son, buying back his own roof, and paying bricklayers after it. All for a shed, with a young woman on the ground every day of it in a gown the whole parish could describe. He heard it at the quarter sessions from a magistrate who thought he was being kind, and rode home and found her at the north end of the new pit, sleeves rolled, setting her father's plants into fresh oak bark. 29, she said, without looking up. 2 more and I am done, and then I do not touch them until the spring except to look. Miss Ledbury, you have that voice on, the one from the hall at March House. Say it standing up. Marry me. She set the pot down, straightened, and looked at him across the pit, with the sweat standing on her forehead. Say the rest of it, she said. There is no rest of it. There is a good deal of it, and you have been rehearsing it on the road. You are going to tell me it stops the talk. That the moment the banns are read, I am not a woman in trade on your ground. I am a duchess with an interest in horticulture. And Mrs. Vaughan will call it a charming eccentricity. And my name will be sewn up so tight that nobody can get a finger under it. It is a good argument. You may have noticed I have not said no. You have not said yes. I want to hear the other one, she said. The one that is not about the county. He came round the end of the bark bed and stopped, and did not touch her. Very well. I have been an unhappy man for 6 years, and did not know it until I stood in a glass house at 10 at night, being told what bark does, and found I had not thought about my father for 2 hours. I am 34, and I have never asked anybody anything of this kind, and all my life I have been offered women the way one is offered a dish. Nobody has ever made me work for a sentence. You have made me work for every one of them since July, and I should like to spend the rest of my life at it, and if you send me away I shall go, and I shall not ask again, and it shall be the worst thing that has ever happened to me. The glass house ticked in the heat. Somewhere down the line a pane that was not yet puttied moved in its frame. That one, Verity said unsteadily, was much better. Then answer it. Not yet. Why? Because of what is in your steward's case, your grace, and because you have not asked him. She wiped her hands down the gown that had stopped being a gown in August. 9 weeks ago I asked you for a 1/4 acre in front of 22 people, and you have not given it to me yet, and until it is given, this county will say I got it out of you, by being wanted and not by growing anything. My father spent his life laughed at for that pit, and died poor in it. And I will not have the whole of it end in a joke about a duke and a gardener's girl. Give me the paper first. Then ask me in a road where nobody can see us, and you will not have to work for that sentence at all. He was still looking at her when Mr. Crewe came down the length of the house with his case beneath one elbow and his hat in his hand, walking rather faster than a man of 60 walks, and stopped, and looked from one of them to the other with an expression of complete misery. "Your Grace, Miss Ledbury, how long have you been standing here saying that?" "Long enough," said the Duke. "Why?" "Because I have been in Winchester since Tuesday with the draft, and I have had counsel's opinion on it, and I came out with the good news, which is that the lease is sound, and the bad, which I would give a great deal not to be carrying." He set the case down on the pit wall. "The lease will stand in your name the moment it is sealed, madam, and for your life. And no trustee can undo it, and no neighbour can talk it away." He took a breath. "And on the day you marry his Grace, it ends." "Ends," said Verity. "A wife holds nothing of her own. What is hers at the marriage becomes her husband's to manage, and a lease she holds of her own husband cannot stand against him at all. It merges, madam, it is the word the books use. It merges, and it is gone. You would walk into that church holding a 1/4 acre and 120 feet of glass, and walk out holding what every married woman in England holds, which is her ring." He looked at the floor. "You may have the ground, or you may have him. The law of this country does not allow you both, and I have read it 4 times hoping to be wrong." She did not sleep, and at 2 in the morning she got the tin box down off the top of her father's press and put it on the table by the candle. Sermons in a hand going shaky at the ends, a packet of seed papers, a tanner's receipt for 11 loads of spent bark, paid, and at the bottom, folded in 3 and tied with a tape gone the colour of weak tea. A settlement drawn by a country attorney in the year her parents married, when a curate with nothing married a woman with £400 and a cousin at Marchhouse who did not come to the wedding. Verity read it twice. Then she read one line of it out loud. Alone, in a cottage she was to be turned out of in 3 weeks, to her sole and separate use, she said, free from the debts, control and engagements of any husband she may hereafter take. She was at Ashburton before Mr. Crewe had finished his breakfast. "Where," she said, putting it on his cloth, "is the flaw in that?" He read it standing, with his napkin still in his hand, and she watched a man of 60 go from irritation to attention to something close to greed in the space of half a page. Good heavens, Madam Robotham of Alton. I knew his son. There is no flaw, is there? There is no flaw. It is a trust to separate use, as old as the Chancery and twice as stubborn. It does not ask the law to make a wife into a person who may own things the law will not do that, and there is no arguing with it. It goes round the outside. He was walking about now. The ground is not given to you at all. It is given to trustees, to hold for you, and no husband may touch, charge, sell, or meddle with any part of it, and if he tries, Chancery takes him by the collar. It is what every prudent father in England does for a daughter with money. Nobody has done it for a daughter with none, because there was nothing to do it with. And a lease may go into it? A lease of a 1/4 acre and a glass house goes in exactly as £5,000 in the funds would. It is the same instrument. It will look very odd. He stopped. It will look magnificent. 2 trustees are wanted. Men of substance, and not the husband. Will you be one, Mr. Crewe? I have never been asked to be a trustee for a person who has £21, said Mr. Crewe, and I find I am extremely pleased about it. The rector will be the other. He owes me a favour and he cannot spell, so he will not argue with my drafting. Then draw it and bring it to the rent table at Michaelmas, and do not tell him. Do not tell his grace. He has spent the summer buying back roofs and paying bricklayers to be rid of his father, Verity said. He may have one thing in his life that arrives without him having paid for it. Lady Frampton's attorney came out from Alton the same Thursday, and read his demand in the library at Ashburton, with his hat on his knees. £2,000, a bond given by the late Duke to Sir Rowland Frampton 11 years before, and never called, because between neighbours these things sit, and now called payable at Michaelmas, with the widow's compliments. She has waited a month to be sure I would not marry the girl, the Duke said, when the man had gone. She has waited a month to be sure you would, said Mr. Crewe. It is worse. Marry Miss Frampton, and the bond goes back in the drawer for another 11 years. How much have I? 1140, after the glass and the tanner and the bricklayers, and the rent's not in until the day itself. And what is in this house worth 900 that keeps the rain off nobody? The dessert service, said Mr. Crewe, who did not need to look it up. Silver gilt, 82 pieces, made for your grandfather. 2,200 at Rundle's as plate, and rather more as history. Neither of them said anything for a moment, because they were thinking of the same object, and so was Verity when she was told of it that evening, the great chased centre stand, on which a hired pineapple had stood at March House under a hot window in July. Sell it, said the Duke. Your Grace, it is the plate. A house of this rank is expected to keep a table nobody eats off and a glass house nobody grows in. My father managed both and died owing a neighbour £2,000. If the county wishes to see my grandfather's appurtenant, may go to London and look at it in a shop window. The plate went on the Saturday, in 2 crates, in the estate wagon, with a man riding behind it. Verity stood at the gate with bark on her hands, and watched a wagon of silver go down the avenue to pay a dead man's debt to a living woman who meant to buy a husband for her daughter with it, and thought, quite clearly, that she had never wanted anything as much as she wanted quarter day over. On the night before quarter day, the new house at Ashburton made 90 degrees for the first time since the old Duke was alive. Verity read the thermometer at 9 and again at 11, and wrote both figures into the almanac under her father's last line, and sat on the brick edge in the warm dark, with 31 plants breathing around her, and did not cry, because she had a great deal to do in the morning. At the cottage there were 6 crowns on the bench, and a 7th at the end, the one her father had started from a sucker in the last autumn of his life. It had taken 3 years, it was ripe, and she had twice been offered a guinea a night for it, and twice said no, and she stood over it with the knife in her hand a long while before she cut it. Somebody knocked at 11 at night, which in that parish still had one of 4 meanings. I have come on foot, said Honoria Frampton, and I have got a stone in my shoe, and Mamma believes I am asleep with a headache. May I sit down before you decide whether to speak to me? Sit in the sound chair. Thank you. She sat. She was 19 and had walked the whole way in the dark, in slippers. She will do it at noon. She has told Mr. Otway to put your cottage at the very end of the rent book, so that the whole parish is still in the room, and she will not take your money, and she will read the notice out herself, and then say the other thing. What other thing? That you were offered £50 and a respectable place, and refused it because you had a better prospect in view. Honoria looked at the floor. She has said it to 11 people already. In her version, you did not refuse charity. You were holding out for him. That is a good version, Verity said. It will travel. It will travel, and it is a lie, and I have known it was a lie since July. The girl's hands were shaking. I have come to say 2 things and then I shall walk home. The first is that I am sorry. I stood at that table and let my fan come down and said nothing. And being sorry afterwards is worth almost nothing, but it is what I have. And the second? I will not do it, said Honoria. I am 19, and I have been told what I am for since I was 11. Tomorrow my mother means to hold a bond over a man's head before the whole parish to make him take me. And if he does, I shall spend 40 years being the price of a debt, and I would rather be a joke in this county than a thing that was paid with. She stood up. So I have written to him. It went by the boy at 9. It says I release him, that I never had any engagement to release him from, and that I hope he is very happy with somebody who knows what bark does. Verity found, to her own great annoyance, that she had to sit down. You are braver than I was at 19, she said. I am not brave. I am 19 and frightened, and my shoe is full of gravel. Honoria stopped at the door. Miss Ledbury, will you tell me one thing? Is it true that you cut that fruit at 6 in the morning and carried it 2 miles in a basket so that nobody would see you? It is. Then when they are all being astonished at you tomorrow, Honoria said, I should like them to know that part. The note came at first light in Mr. Crewe's own hand, by a groom who had ridden hard enough to be excused his language. The estate trustees had met in Winchester on the Monday. Before them lay a draft lease of estate ground to a woman, unmarried, unconnected, in trade, and, by the same post, a letter from a lady of the county describing the tenant. They would seal nothing on such a title unless His Grace satisfied them that the transaction was what it appeared, and not a settlement upon a future wife made behind their backs. They required his word, in writing, under his hand beneath the sealing clause, that there was no engagement between himself and the tenant, present or intended, then or thereafter. They would take his answer at noon at that table in the parish's hearing, from the man himself. Verity read it twice, standing in the doorway with the cut pineapple in a basket at her feet. To put her name on that paper, he had to swear in public that he would never marry her. The rent table at March House was set out in the great hall at noon on the 29th of September. A long board, the rent book open on it. Misty, Otway the steward with his pen, Lady Frampton at the head in grey silk, and the parish standing about the walls, because a quarter day in that county was half business and half theatre. The Ledbury cottage was put at the very end of the book. Verity came up when she was called, in the pink gown, and set £2 down in silver on the board. 40 shillings, to the hour, and there is the quarter, she said. And here is the key, because I am giving the cottage up. Write that in your book, Mr. Otway, in your own hand, and let it be read that I gave it up and was not put out of it. Lady Frampton had the notice in her fingers, and no longer any use for it. How very fine, she said. £50 was offered to this young woman, and a respectable house in Bath, and she refused it, and the parish may draw its own conclusion as to what she was holding out for. They may, said Verity, and here is the evidence for it. She put Mr. Pym's ledger on the rent table and opened it flat. 41 entries. every date and weight and payment in his hand, and not mine. The first is the 9th of April, 2 months after my father was buried, 10 shillings and sixpence. The last is the fruit that stood on this house's own table, where you all admired it. £21 10 and 6 in 3 years saved whole, while the £8 a year my father's charity allows me came to this table as rent, to the quarter and to the hour. What I earned before breakfast bought this parish its ornaments, ma'am, and paid you besides. A shop book, said Lady Frampton, proves a shop. It proves work, said Mr. Pym from the door. He had shut the shop at 11, which he had not done in 40 years, and walked, and stood there with his hat off, among people who had taken their custom from him in August. Her name is not in that book because I left it out, at her asking and to my shame, he said. So I shall say it here, where it costs me something. Every fruit this county has admired for 3 years came off the bench of a curate's daughter out past Alton, who never once asked me to lie for her, only to keep quiet. That was the moment the room changed, and everybody in it afterwards claimed to have felt it happen. The Duke came in at the tail of it, with Mr. Crewe behind him, laid a pocket-book on the board, counted out £2,000 in notes in front of the parish, asked for the bond, and got it. My father's debt to your husband, ma'am, paid at the day, he said. There is no obligation between these two houses of any kind whatever, and I should like the parish to have heard me say so. Your Grace has an announcement to make, I think. The trustees require it, and my daughter, your daughter, released me by letter at 9 last night, and I have it in my pocket. I did, said Honoria, from the wall, in a voice that shook only at the end. And I meant it, Mamma, and I shall say so tomorrow, to anybody who asks. Mr. Crewe put the deed on the table, and the trustee's condition beside it, and read the condition out loud, because he was that sort of man, and it was that sort of morning, that his Grace was required to swear, under his own signature, that there was no engagement between himself and the tenant, then or thereafter. I will not sign that, said the Duke. Your Grace, I will not sign it because it is untrue. I intend to ask her, and she has not answered me yet, and I would rather lose the ground than lie to a parish about it. Then may I have the pen, said Verity. She took it out of Mr. Otway's hand, and gave Mr. Crewe her mother's settlement, opened at the 2nd page, and he wrote what she told him at the foot of the deed, standing up, in a hand that had drawn papers for 30 years and never once enjoyed itself so much. To the use of the Reverend Dr. Marlin and Mr. Crewe as trustees, she said upon trust for me, to my sole and separate use, free from the debts, control and engagements of any husband I may hereafter take, my receipt alone to be a good discharge. Say what it does, said the rector, who could not spell but could listen. It does what the trustees are afraid of, only backwards. They fear a duke is putting estate ground into the hands of a woman he means to marry, so that it comes round to him again. This makes that impossible, forever. If I marry him tomorrow, he cannot touch this ground, or charge it, or sell it, or take a shilling out of it, and it will still be mine when he is dead, and mine to leave. They wanted his word. This is better. It is a wall. It is unanswerable, said Mr. Crewe, holding it up, and I drew it, and I will have that minuted. So the Duke signed a lease of a 1/4 acre and a long glass house to a woman in her own right, at £10 the year for her life, and Verity Ledbury counted £20 onto the rent table for 2 years in advance, and put £1, 10 and 6 back into her pocket, which was everything she had in the world. Then she lifted the basket onto the board, took out the 7th crown, and asked Mr. Otway for a knife. "You will not cut it," said Lady Frampton. "Nobody in this county has ever cut one," said Verity. "That is what has been wrong with all of us." She cut it there on the board in front of the parish, and it was the ripest thing any of them had ever smelled. The first slice went to Mr. Pym, the second to Honoria Frampton, the third to Mrs. Bewley, who cried, and then it went round the hall in pieces until there was none left, and it had cost nobody a guinea. He caught her up on the road 1/2 mile past the lodge, walking, with the empty basket on her arm and her key given away. "There is nobody watching," he said. "There is a boy on that gate with a ferret. He is 9, and he can keep a secret." "Then ask me," said Verity. He did. She had had her answer ready since a night in August, and she gave it standing in a lane in the same dyed pink gown, and he kissed her, once carefully, as a man does who has been waiting to be allowed. They were married at the end of October. Mr. Pym gave her away and had his Saturdays back inside the month, as he had predicted, and Lady Frampton went to Bath in November, and found that Bath preferred somebody else's version of the story. In the spring the new house carried its first crop under the hand of its own tenant, and none of it went to a back door for half a guinea. One went to Mr. Pym, with the compliments of the trustees, and the rest were cut at her own table, where a great many people who had once been sorry for her ate them with a spoon. The almanac stayed on the warm brick lip, and the twice-daily figures went down the page in her hand, and at the foot of the flyleaf under her father's name and her mother's, she wrote her own, with the date the lease was sealed beside it. A thing that is only borrowed has to go back before midnight, and everybody at the table knows it, and nobody says it, and that is what makes the table so quiet. A thing you grew yourself can be cut, so tell me what you would have done in that hall in July. Would you have lifted the fruit off the silver and said it out loud with the whole county watching, and lost your name to keep the truth, or set it down, carried the plate out to the straw, and kept the one thing your father left you? Leave your answer below, and if this story kept you company tonight, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and put the bell on so the next one finds you.